In the 90s, I was a police officer in Japan where I often dealt with smaller cases and basic traffic violations. However, later in my career, Japan experienced a major economic crash, which led my department to focus more on welfare checks. While many of these checks involved finding people who had either died in their own filth or a man spiraling in his own self pity, I fortunately only handled these situations a handful of times, but one case has stuck with me. We received a call for a welfare check on a mother and child. The call came from the child's father, who hadn't heard from his ex wife or received any updates about his newborn daughter in weeks. I called our CGC caseworker, but they never followed up. I'm worried. I need to know if my baby is okay. I reassured him that the mother was probably having trouble getting a phone or was simply being stubborn. I asked for the address and the names of the mother and child. Hanae Inoue's file was interesting. Although she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, the courts had ruled that their child Ainu should stay with the mother full-time, granting the father only limited visitation rights. Since there was no mention of any child abuse reports before or after the divorce, I believed that maybe the father was just too paranoid. I mean, sure, she has an illness, but that doesn't make her a bad mother. I arrived at the apartment complex. It looked rundown and tiny. I entered through the front, and the smell of mold and water damage reeked through the halls. Hane lived on the third floor. I entered the elevator and pressed the button. When I arrived, I noticed there was a row of coin lockers. You would usually find these near most train stations, but I guess the landlord wanted extra cash and had placed them there for people to rent. I counted the rooms as I walked by: 01, 02, 03, 3B, 04, and finally apartment 045. I knocked on the harsh wood of the door, feeling like I could have broken it with a harder knock. Yes. Hello, ma'am. I'm Officer Kobayashi. I was called for a welfare check. Can you come out to talk? She opened the door slowly. Hanae was a thin woman. Her hair looked unwashed, and her clothes appeared too big for a small frame. She looked up at me, leaning against the doorframe. What do you want? Your ex-husband was worried about the safety of you and your daughter. Can I come in? I tried to look behind her so I could at least get a glimpse of the baby, hoping to ease not only my own mind, but the father's as well. The silence within the home felt strange, considering the baby was a newborn. I would have expected to hear something. She rolled her eyes before saying, "No, we're fine, and tell the bastard not to call again." She slammed the door in my face. I blinked in shock before sighing. She looked fine, and I couldn't see any signs of danger either. Although she looked thin, that wasn't a justification to barge in. I stood there for a few moments before heading back to the elevator. As I walked past the lockers, I heard a faint, soft cry. I stopped in my tracks. It sounded like a baby. I looked at the locker next to me, a small blue locker. The cry came from it again. I couldn't move. I must be hearing the cry from somewhere else. My thoughts were racing. I couldn't just not look inside. I had to look. My fingers slowly insert a coin. A loud click came from the door. I slowly opened the small locker door. I couldn't breathe. My throat felt like it was closing in on itself. A small newborn baby, wrapped in a small baby blue blanket, lay within the locker. Her body thin and purple. The blanket was leaking brown sludge and maggots. I choked out a cry and tried to hold back the vomit. I reached for my walkie-talkie, but before I could, the woman lunged from behind me. She held me down, trying to bash my head into the tile below, her nails digging into my neck like pins into a cushion. I hit her with the side of my walkie-talkie, hard, making sure she bled before putting my knee to her back. I struck her with the side of my walkie-talkie, the blow landing with a sickening force. Blood pooled beneath her, but I didn't stop, pressing my knee into her back, making sure she stayed down. I called for backup, barely hearing my own voice as it trembled through the static. I cuffed her, trying to stay focused, but all I could think about was the sound of my heart pounding in my chest, urging me to do something, anything, before it all fell apart. The others arrived and took her away for questioning. I stumbled outside, collapsing onto the curb, my hand shaking as I lit a cigarette. I inhaled deeply, but it did nothing to numb the ache gnawing at me. Where's my daughter? Where's my baby girl? Please, sir, stand back. I recognized the voice instantly, but I couldn't bring myself to meet his gaze. I kept my eyes on the ground, the weight of the world pressing down on me. I knew, deep down, that I didn't need an answer.